On this week's Delving Deeper, we're talking about money.
I love money.
Ducats.
I like money.
What you buying? What you selling? Specifically about abstract wealth systems. So, to begin, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what wealth money usually looks like in your typical RPG. We'll take D&D because that's the easy one for a reference point.
Typically, it doesn't look like anything because I don't think they ever give you a physical representation.
No, but there is a stat that you actually work with.
We're calling it a stat.
I guess it's a part of your inventory.
I guess
It's
you
an
track
inventory
it.
item. Yeah, which is basically gold. In D&D, there are some other systems that use some form of currency. Basically, you have X number of currency.
It could be Electrum.
It could be Electrum. Yeah.
Nobody uses Electrum in D&D. They're like, let's add Electrum, and they're like, can we just stick to gold pieces?
Yeah. Probably because why confuse something more than it has to be?
Yeah, there's copper, silver, Electrum, gold, and then platinum typically.
Right. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of different kinds of games where they try to make those denominations all the way up, and I do have to ask myself, like, this seems unnecessary for what you're trying to accomplish. You could just have one denomination.
Yeah, it's a bit granular for.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe gold and then silver, perhaps.
Gold and silver, yeah, possibly. I think like it seems like if you. I see it. I see dogs and I see cats. And I see fire and I see rain. But also, if we had a wealth system that was like dollars, but also yen and pounds, it wouldn't make much sense.
Yeah. Just convert it into local.
Yeah, just have one. Just have one. And we'll work from there.
Of course, in video games, there's also typically. All right, then. Wow. Mother left, and now you're going to be annoying.
Perfect.
Can you hear that or no?
No.
Okay, we're fine then. But that was just beep.
Yeah.
Anyways, in video games, they tend to have like gold.
Yeah.
Or dollar, depending on the system or country. Some games you can swap currency value, as it were, from like dollars to euros or pounds, but it's still the same monetary unit, just called a different thing. Kind of like they do with temperature. It's like, well, temperature they actually measure differently for those as well. Cat cam.
Oh yeah, the cat.
What are you doing?
The cat has decided that.
Wow.
Echo has decided that really wants to be part of the stream now.
Yeah. For those of you listening to the audio only, check out the video portion for cats.
For
and
cats.
Dogs.
There's gonna be cats right up there.
What are you doing? Go away.
Echo.
Oh my god, they're both right here.
Yeah.
Their mother left, and now they must bother me.
Perfect.
Anyways, wow, this is good off the wheels already. But yeah, so one of the other things they can also do is a lot of games will do like gold.
Yeah.
Or like, I know they'll have their own name for a currency a lot of times in certain games. I know Mountain Blade Bannerlord has dinars.
Sure.
For instance, gold, there's septums in Elder Scrolls. It's all just the same currency with different name values for most of these things. It's all like, these are all just wealth measurements.
Sure. I think where that gets confusing, and the reason why I've seen some other variations on it, is because when you get into very large quantities, it starts to become almost unmanageable. Gold, in some respects, is supposed to have weight, but also when you get into like high-level items, the amount is just huge, and you have to start thinking like comparatively. is this thing actually worth 5,000 gold? Isn't this sword going to be worth as much as a house is worth in this world? It starts to make really weird
Yeah, when you get
logic.
into the economy of things as well, like that, not that that's specifically what we're talking about for this segment, but
Right.
when you get into the economy in like D&D, it's like, oh, we've got 500 gold, and it's like, yeah, your average like peasant makes like a gold a month.
Yeah.
So, inject all that money into the economy and make someone's life.
or literally you can buy entire portions of towns at that point.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long, and then when you figure out what adventuring supplies are supposed to cost, you're like, why would anyone have actually wanted to buy all of how would they have afforded most of the stuff that you have to buy for basic gear, let alone the good stuff. But I have seen some ways that they have actually changed that system up. Now, the one that is a really old system is just the bartering system. if you just like say, hey, I'll trade you this thing for this thing, and you take money out of it entirely. Which, if you're dungeon diving and you happen to find a nice item but you can't necessarily use it, you might be able to do that. You would have to figure out a way, though, in-game where you'd have to haggle with the shopkeeper to determine if it was a like value to the thing that you actually wanted from them.
I mean, again, you could then assign each typical item a monetary value average if you wanted to.
Sure.
But then you're not taking money out of the system. Then you're saying this is worth about X.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not quite taking money out of the system. It's just, again, using a different unit to measure the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have 3 goats. Oh, that's worth about 15 gold.
Right. But you're always converting that back into some kind of monetary value that you then work off of.
I mean, I think even with abstract systems, you're going to be converting things back into abstract monetary values.
There's no goat-based economy, as far as I know.
There could be,
except for Goat Simulator, which is very much a goat-based economy.
We can make a board game with a goat-based economy.
That's true.
It's like Settlers of Catan, where it's a sheep-based economy.
Yeah. That's a good economy right there, because it has sheep in it. But the one that I actually did see that takes money out of the equation altogether, I saw mostly in, what was it called? Oh, Open Legend.
Okay.
Open Legend actually does have an abstract wealth system. The way that works is that, depending on your character, you have a wealth level. Essentially, that determines what you normally would be able to afford on like the week or month that you are in. If you are, peasant or all the way up to like affluent classes, and essentially what you would be able to afford in a week. There's no real money involved in that, but it gives you an idea of what you realistically could afford if something came up. It's not telling you how much you have, but if you get to be like Lord Satis, you could assume that you could afford to keep an entourage around you. You could actually keep, bodyguards. You might be able to afford ships. Can you afford horses? And what would that look like in a week or a month or something like that? Or if it's just that I can barely squeak by and I can only afford, basic supplies and really nothing else. I think the reason why that system did that is because, well, since that's an open system and it can be any setting, it allows you to kind of apply that to whether it's a space opera or you're doing like a medieval realm. You can kind of just assume that same kind of wealth level for whatever it is. You don't have to think about what the currency and the denominations and everything are, because it can be as esoteric as you want it to be. You could say that your wealth level would allow you to get a horse, but then you could also assume that it will allow you to get like a spaceship or a fighter jet. And there's a lot of cat stuff going on right now, and we're in Cat Fight Club. Oh my goodness!
Just keep going. We're fine.
There's There's Cat Fight Club. Okay. Cat Fight Club ended. That's not fair.
Abstract cat economy.
An abstract cat economy. Yeah, exploding cat economy. You could do that. Absolutely. So you can do that kind of a wealth system where you just take money out of it entirely. Then the other thing that I've seen occasionally is, and I'm pretty sure that you've played a few games that are like this, is where we just don't have a money system at all because it's just not applicable. We just don't bring up the trading of goods or shopping as a mechanic.
Oh, I mean, that's not ever not gonna happen in at least RPGs and tabletop. I mean, tabletop games, there's some that trading and stuff won't happen because it doesn't make sense. For like Vast, for instance, if we were using a game as an example, there's no bartering between players or anything like that.
That's true.
So,
That's
I mean,
true.
I think there is money, but there's no like trading.
Right.
A different example for me would actually be a game that I played that has an abstract wealth system similar to Open Legend. It was actually Fantasy Flight Games Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where you are basically playing affluent businessmen, kind of your rogue traders and their entourage, where you've got your trader who's got a warrant of trade. They can do business all throughout the fucking galaxy, and they have your characters have a wealth kind of rating. So it's similar to what you can spend, what you can afford in a week. This is like, all right, due to your level of fame or your power, this is like reasonably what you can expect because you own a giant spaceship. And you are traders. So it's like, could we afford, say, a battalion's worth of weapons and armor for like guards?
Sure.
Like, yeah. It's based on the difficulty of the item to acquire that you're going for. So like a single las gun, for instance, it's like trivial beyond belief. It's like you could get that no problem from anywhere, no problem. But like maybe you want 20 tanks. It's like that might be a little bit harder. That might be a bit harder. So based on the difficulty and the level of the item you're trying to acquire and the wealth and power level of your characters, and if any of the other characters are trying to help you acquire that, it's like these are items that are reasonable for you to get, harder to get, and you can still roll on that to see if you can acquire it as well. You can be like, all right, maybe I want a gun. Okay, that's easy. Maybe I want a new warp drive for my starship. All right, that might be hard to acquire. See if you can acquire it, kind of deal. So that one's a lot more abstract, but it also makes sense where you're dealing with enough quantities of money and items that it does not make sense for you to get into the nitty gritty of, I've got $5,000. It's like, no, we're using vast quantities of wealth here.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting. So when you're going through that, is it like I'm wealth level 1, 2, 3, 4? Are they assigning like a number to your wealth level, and then that determines?
Don't quite remember exactly, but it does have like a for the items it would be like this is rare or this is plentiful or it's got its kind of rarity level, like just how easy or hard it is for that item to be acquired. And then wealth is based on your fame level as that goes up and down.
I see. Okay. And then that determines basically the difficulty of acquiring items at any particular level.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, got it. The other one that I had seen that I was playing in was in 1879. The way that they handle wealth in that system is with you getting a certain... They kind of assume that if you are of certain wealth levels, there is actually a monetary denotation that you would normally be living on. And when we were actually playing, it was about getting a certain fee, essentially, for performing missions, that you get a payout for it. Now, what I decided to use that for, because I actually wanted to do something with it, everybody else was trying to use it for training or equipment, or they were buying stuff, and I was like, no, when I get back to London from my trip down to South America and they gave me money, I said, what I'm going to use it for, because I was an inventor, I'm buying a workshop. And I'm getting some people, and I'm hiring them on, and so now what we had to do is kind of work out, okay, well, how much would you reasonably be paying your unskilled labor, essentially, to come in and to work in the factory, and to train them to do the different things, and how much would it cost you to have, like, a resource pile in the back, essentially, and to have the building itself, how much would it cost you a month? And is that going to work inside of your framework?
And you're like, payment? Ha! Stealing people from their homes.
I kept thinking to myself the entire time, well, if I have a factory and I'm working on, like, taking the inventions that I came up with on my travels and trying to replicate them for, like, the elite of London, then I'm going to be making a profit that I can use to keep the workshop and my employees working even while I'm away. So the one thing that I made it, by the way, the workshop is Danger Zone. It's the Danger Zone. Yeah. And then
I hope you have an overseer named Lana.
No. No, I didn't. But I think that my 3 assistants that I had nicknamed, Goose, Maverick, I can't remember, Iceman? I want to say Iceman. But anyway, it's all Top Gun references, just the whole damn thing. And so I had come up with, in the jungle, when I was down in South America, I had built a basic mechanical thing that wasn't magical. It didn't require any of my special powers or anything. But it was just like this portable tandoori smoker that, like, collapsed down and, like, you could build it back up. Just a mechanical piece that didn't require any special skills. And I was like, this is terrific. This is going to be great. And so I just had them start making those. And so while I'm away, one day if I get back, I got to check and make sure that they're selling those tandoori smokers so that we can.
Turns out they're a spring trap device that kills whoever uses it.
Oh, that should have been the real thing that I did with those. That would have been amazing. What I did find, though, is one of the most useful things that came around was when I disarmed traps or, things exploded, like those mechanical scorpions. And they all exploded. Much better than the money that I was getting is the parts. Scoop up all the parts. Because then I had this quantity of parts. And what Andy basically was like is like, okay, you have, let's say, 50 scorpion parts from the blown up scorpion robot. And it's like, cool. Going in my pile because I can use those to actually build things. And I found that was going to be a more useful thing, to have the actual parts, the springs, assemblies, all of that, than the money itself, because I can do stuff with it. I can build stuff with it. Yeah. There is supposed to be a system, too, in that game, where if I wanted to, like, upgrade my abilities or upgrade my different pieces so that I could have, like, permanently magical items, you're supposed to have amount of money that you pour into it. But we actually abstracted that out a lot, too, because you figure that if you are acclimated and you're working on it actively, you wouldn't be paying money into that system, really, to build it yourself. You'd just be taking the time and your labor in order to do it. You'd be taking time away to build. So I didn't have to spend, like, a ton of money in order to make that work. For specifically items that were signature items for me, if I wanted to try and improve them. So that helped kind of take the wealth aspect out of that whole system. So basically, in this case, I guess the question that I would ask to you is, do you think that it makes sense to try and do an abstracting of wealth levels, or is it really necessary in most cases? Could you just get away with using a basic monetary system?
Honestly, as per normal for us, it would depend on what your system is doing
Take a
and
shot.
what you're trying to do with the game system itself,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it makes more sense to abstract that out and have something that doesn't require actual monetary units but can be replaced with some other usefulness, like in that
Sure.
case, your mechanical scrap or the abstract wealth system for acquiring great quantities of items.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really depends on if you're like personally trying to buy like single items or if you're trying to buy quantity, I think as well. Whether
Right.
you want to buy large or small quantities and whether you're going to have ubiquitous item rarity or extreme disparity between how hard it is to find the items.
Right. I think that it becomes more useful to have an abstracting if you're starting to deal with large quantities of money.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about in Rogue Trader, is like, it's just going to be so much record keeping to
Mhm.
try and figure out the amount of money you have if you're trying to manage a fleet of,
Yeah.
of trading ships. It's much better to kind of just get an idea of how much general wealth you have to work with or what it could buy directly instead of
Yeah.
trying to figure out the monetary value of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, if you're trying to manage the money for a fleet's worth of vessels and crew and supplies and, oh, I've got 15 billion crown gelt. How much does it cost running? Oh, that costs 14.5 million running, 0.362843, and then I have an extra 300,000 cost. No, no one wants to do that.
It's too much.
Nobody wants to do that.
It's too much. Yeah.
That's what you have accountants for. And you do not play the accountants.
Right. And so, yeah, you should just have like a system. How many accountants do you have? That's your wealth system. If you have more than one accountant, you're doing very well, apparently. To manage your different accounts. How many accounts do you have?
One of my ships is just all accountants.
One of my ships is just. Yeah, perfect. Just just a ship full of accountants.
Nobody wants to visit it.
Nobody wants to visit it. Have you seen my wonderful? Have you seen my wonderful money ship? It's where you keep the money. No, it's just where I keep the accountants that handle the money in my ship. Perfect. Yeah. If you've gotten that deep in the weeds, you're too far in the weeds.
Time to count how many weeds there are.
Good thing we have an accountant ship for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.